about, or that I would like to talk about with this etude, is that it needs to be, it's a lyrical etude, and it needs to sort of tell a story. It needs to express emotions, or maybe think of it as background music to a movie, to a scene of a movie or something like that. We need to find ways to spark the students' imaginations where they're just not playing notes and rhythms all the way through. The first way to do that is to discuss, well, first of all, just get their imagination going, but also to discuss phrasing. There are plenty of dynamics written in this piece, in this etude, and crescendos and decrescendos, but there are plenty more that are implied that aren't necessarily written. So if we take our very first phrase, where we start on the B flat, we've got a dotted quarter note that goes to, it's a dotted quarter note B flat, and goes A, G, F, and goes down the scale. That quarter note needs to do something. We don't want to go just ba, 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 if you think of your phrases always as rising and falling, you're always going to a high point and going to a low point. So one of the, I think one of the simplest things to tell your students is anytime you've got a long note, do something with it. Don't ever let your long notes just sit there and be stale. Music is living and breathing, and music needs to always, go to a specific point and then go away. So your first phrase, that dotted quarter note, needs to have a slight crescendo. So it's, if I were to put words to this, I would say, maybe something like, give me my pizza. I want it very, very badly, pizza. So you can tell that pizza is the operative word, right? And it's on the F sharp, P, dot, dot, ta. So you crescendo towards that high point of the phrase, pizza, and then you relax at the tail end of that. And, the difference between playing it that way and straight, that's the right notes, that's the right rhythm, it's a pretty decent tone, I've done my duty, but this is more appealing to listen to. It's a huge difference, and you notice not only does it change the shape of the line and make it more musically to listen to, but it also changes the tone. The first time the sound was just pretty much the same all the way through. It didn't have any. It was a very very constant sound. The other way, it had highs and lows in it, and as the sound increases in volume, the sound also grows in color. It gets a little more lively, and then as it gets softer, it also gets a warmer, sort of a softer feel. And those are all nice things to do, I think, in a lyrical etude, as long as you're maintaining a nice sound throughout. And we can go through and look for things like that all the way through the etude. I just chose that first phrase because it's the simplest one to do. But look for things like that throughout the etude. Long notes always going someplace. By the way, anytime you've got a question or you want to interject something, please feel free to do this. This is for you guys. I could talk all day, but I'm happy to entertain questions. So that's phrasing. The next thing I'd like to discuss is rubato. The 16th notes at the end of this phrase, you can play them straight, and that's fine, but I think that there's lots of room on this, especially in the cadenza part, but on this section also, to where you don't want to play the notes exactly straight all the way through. Again, you can, and that's fine, but if just a little bit of shape can really make the music more interesting. The word rubato, most of us know that it literally means to rob. So what we do, we don't want to lose time on it. What we do is we steal a little bit of time by stretching the beginning of a phrase or a group of notes, and then we make up for it by speeding up on the end of that. So those 16th notes at the beginning of this phrase, difference between the two. The first one, it's kind of stretch the first note ever so slightly and then make up for it by speeding up through the rest. Adds just a little bit nicer, more of an elegant shape to that etude, or to that phrase. Another one is, if you look a little bit further down the page, there's a spot that has some 30-second notes, and I gave you an example of this on your sheet there. Shapes like that. The first group of 30-second notes you see, you stretch those just a little bit, you speed up a little bit on the middle one, and then slow down towards the end. towards that B flat. Then you've got a crescendo through the 16th notes after that. And the crescendo going up to forte, I think that's a nice spot to vary the articulation. Because it's building an intensity, I think the articulation should grow a little bit stronger there as well. So it's maybe slight accents as you build towards that forte. And then again, you've got the rallentando. I think you can stretch the first one of those 30-second notes in that first group, and then speed through the rest of it, and then the rallentando through the other two groups. But look for things like that. You can try different things. One thing that I think helps with rubato is to maybe sing it and not play it, because we get so bogged down with the mechanics of this thing, pressing down vowels and working the lips and playing in tune and all that kind of stuff, that sometimes that makes our music sound mechanical. And just backing off of something and saying, well, how would I like to hear this played or sung to me? And just sing it yourself, with the phrasing. Experiment that way with your students, and maybe even get your students to do the same if you can get them to sing that. And also, I think the idea of putting words to music to help with high points and low points in the phrases is helpful as well. The cadenza. Any questions about that, about rubatos? Okay, good. The cadenza. Take time. Use rubato during the notes in the cadenza. One thing that we tend to forget in rubato or in a cadenza is that rests are music also. There's a lot of music that can happen in silence. Let me see if I can remember where the cadenza starts. Okay. The places where it pauses, you're waiting for something to happen, and then when it does, it's like, or you're building tension and things like that. The chromatic scale, going from the high G down to the low C, there's not any marking there. I like to maintain the volume so that low C is nice and full, not necessarily strong, but nice and full. So you've got a lot of air moving through that scale. Make sure that you have the students get the vowels all the way up and down. I like to bang the vowels down and maybe just practice that. And you can listen in your vowel things listen for like when you've got notes to go. Can you hear that? When you hear like two clicks at the same time, that if they're pressing down a 1 and 2, sometimes they won't get 1 and 2 down at exactly the same time. So you can work on that just by having them press down the vowels. Start slowly, bang the vowels down very firmly, and get your fingers up on top of the vowels and make sure that they're not doing that, which I may have been doing, but I try not to. But right on top of the vowels, like that is going to be your best bet. But blow the air steady through all the way through to the low C. Low C tends to be a little bit of a sharp note on the trumpet, and it's almost like the trumpet tries to pull a sharp on the note, but really it sounds better if you open up your teeth just a little bit more and play down into the note. It's a better sound, and it's also better in tune. Plus, when you open up your teeth like that, it allows that note to come out a lot more full, especially at the louder volumes. So think about just opening up the teeth a little bit more as you get down to the low C and go lots of air through that note. After the low C, da, ya, da, ba, 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 ba. I think it's loud all the way through there, and then you taper it from your E down to your D, and then back into your accented notes, bom, 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 bom. I got the fermata on your low D, and then the trill. The trill is just marked as a quarter note. I held it a little bit longer than the quarter note. Since it's in the middle of cadenza, I think that's okay, but that's a matter of personal choice. The last two notes, your penultimate note, have it lead to the next note, so that you're not just going the last two notes, I'm done, but really have that second to the last note lead towards that last F. And then hold the F. We're going to put a little fermata on it, because even though it's not the last note of the etude, it's the last note for our purposes. Vibrato. I think this etude needs vibrato. A lot of our students in high school, it's a brand new thing to them, but this is a good way to start working with them on that. If nothing else, just get them to do vibrato on the long notes, on your quarter notes and dotted quarter notes. The typical ways of doing the vibrato are with the jaw and the lower lip, kind of like that, and then the other way is to rock the hands back and forth, the hand on the valves back and forth. Both are valid ways. A lot of times we associate the hand vibrato with jazz and the lip and jaw vibrato with classical. That's not necessarily the case. I see classical players doing the hand vibrato, and I see the jazz players doing the lip waves. And I think it's best, as an advanced player to learn both methods. But I would say that with my own teaching, I allow the students to do whatever is most comfortable for them when they're starting out, what comes more naturally, and then we develop that. And then later on, get them to do the other kind too, so they can learn both ways. But sort of a slow, rocking vibrato, I think, is all that's necessary. Even if they can just get it on the longer notes on this, I think that's fine. Any questions about vibrato? Tone quality. I could spend all day on tone quality, but that is the most important thing about anything that we do on the instrument. Whether you're playing high, loud, fast, slow, soft, whatever, the sound has got to be right. It's got to be a warm sound, it has to be resonant, and it really shows up on lyrical etudes. I'll talk very briefly about this. You notice at the top of my handout it says visit radbrass.com. That's my new website. I just started it earlier this month. But I've got some notes. I've got a 20-page handout for you guys for the ATSSB stuff that includes all the things that I'd like to say about these etudes but don't have time to, and also some other things about fundamentals of trumpet playing, tone quality, articulation, mouthpiece buzzing, warm-ups, and things like that. So please take a minute to visit the site. It's a free download. It's all PDF stuff. But there's lots of things we can talk about. Just briefly, though, about tone quality, what we need to do is we need to find the center of sound. First of all, we have to have a nice, flowing, relaxed air column that goes through relaxed embouchure. The middle part of the lips need to be soft enough to be able to respond and react with the air, and not press into the air like that. I think a lot of trumpet players play trumpet like this and don't realize it, and it does the same thing to their trumpet sound that it does to my voice. Another thing that trumpet players tend to do, especially high school and college, all of us tend to play just a little bit sharp. Most of us, I should say that. And we do that for several reasons. There's a wall that divides, like, say, a G from the C up above, that like harmonic wall, you know, that divides like the bugle call notes. And if we push up against that wall ever so slightly, we can feel where we are because it stays put. And as we do that, you know, we feel some stability there. But the problem with that is we play sharp on everything, and it's not uncommon to see, high school and college trumpet players, especially during marching season, with their tuning slides pulled out that far or farther. And you know, we've got to make them play on tune, so they'll play their note. They play it a little bit tense like this, and we do it, you know, so we get them to, you know, pull out their slides. So now they're in tune, but they're still playing like this. So what we've got to do is work with the students to get down off of that wall and get in the middle of the note. I'll play just a couple of things and let you hear. I'm going to bend the pitch. You'll hear the pitch going up and down, but I also want you to listen to what happens to the tone as I do this. The sound that I ended up with at the end is what I would consider the middle of the note. It's a little bit off of the wall, and it's right before the sound goes kind of like blatty and out of focus. So a way to do that is to do what I was doing: bend around and find where you feel the sound just gets loud all by itself, or where it gets the most full all by itself. You're not blowing extra air to make it loud, but you're just looking for the spot where the vibrations that you're putting into the horn line up with the vibrations of the air molecules that are already going on inside of the tube, and you get resonance, or you get feedback inside of the horn. That's what we want to do, is find that spot for every note that we play. But it's not going to work unless the aperture is open, the lips are relaxed, and the air is flowing freely. So the muscles have to be relaxed, the middle of the embouchure has to be relaxed so that the lips aren't pressing the air like that. But also the frequency of the buzz that we put into the horn has to agree with the length of tube that we've got lined up with whatever valve combination. I've got a lot of things to say about that in that handout, and also some diagrams to help with that. So please take a minute